If you bring all of the cards with you. Dietitian and certified diabetes educator. I work per diem at Barton, and I also have my own little thing going up on the North Shore, Sierra Mountain Wellness, and I'm here today to talk to you about managing diabetes. So first we need to define what is diabetes. It is a disease where the body either doesn't produce or does not use insulin appropriately. Insulin is a hormone that helps bring sugars from the blood and into the cells so that they can be used for energy. And type 1 diabetes is often diagnosed in childhood or even as young as 6 months and into adolescenthood. And that's when the body can't make insulin. It's actually where it's an autoimmune disease where the body attacks its own beta cells, and those beta cells live in the pancreas, and they're the ones that produce insulin. So people with type 1 diabetes actually have to take insulin externally in order to manage their disease, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset diabetes. Unfortunately, children are getting it now too. Type 2 diabetes is where the body can't use the insulin that is produced. So the body's producing insulin just fine, but the cells can't use it. Eventually, though, that can turn into the pancreas is working so hard to produce more and more and more insulin. Eventually, sometimes type 2 diabetes patients have to take insulin as well because their pancreas is overworked and it stops being able to make the insulin that it needs. I mentioned that kids are getting that now too. Oftentimes obesity leads to type 2 diabetes. Fat cells can produce, when they get too full of fat, they produce their own hormones that make cells resistant to using insulin. So that's why we're seeing a lot more type 2 diabetes in kids these days, because there's a lot more prevalence of childhood obesity, overweight. There's also gestational diabetes. The onset for that is during pregnancy. And usually it'll go away after pregnancy, but it does need to be managed during pregnancy to prevent heavy babies and to prevent things like preeclampsia, other diseases that come along with that. However, women who have had gestational diabetes are more likely to develop diabetes later in life and heart disease and some of the other complications. So I always recommend for gestational diabetes patients to continue with their healthy lifestyle practicing during pregnancy beyond, after they're finished being pregnant as well. And then there are some other more rare kinds. MODY, that one's really highly genetic, and MODY acts like type 2 diabetes, but it's a genetic disease, and then that's maturity onset diabetes of the young. And then there's latent autoimmune diabetes of adults, and that one is sometimes called type 1.5 diabetes, and that acts more like type 1 diabetes and comes later in life, and it's slower to progress, so sometimes it can be misdiagnosed as type 2. Whatever type of diabetes one has, it's diagnosed via blood tests. So there are a few different blood tests that can be used to diagnose it. One is the A1C, it's also called hemoglobin A1C or glycohemoglobin, and it's a pretty cool lab test. It actually shows what's been going on. You can estimate the average blood glucose levels for the past 3 months with that test. And an A1C of at least 6.5% is considered a diagnosis for diabetes. Also a fasting blood sugar of at least 126, casual blood sugar of at least 200 with symptoms of diabetes, frequent urination, thirst, weight loss, and then an oral glucose tolerance test. And that one used to be, they used to say that's the only true way to diagnose diabetes, but it's pretty cumbersome to do because you have to fast, and then you go and you drink this sugary drink, and you wait a couple hours, and then you test. So that one can be used too, and that one is actually the one that they use during pregnancy to diagnose gestational diabetes. Treatment and management is pretty similar across the board. Dietary changes are important for everyone who has diabetes, no matter the type. Weight loss is most important for type 2 diabetes. Exercise is really important for controlling blood sugars for type 2 diabetes, but it is so important to be on top of incorporating exercise into your plan when you have type 1 diabetes, if you're insulin dependent, knowing how the exercise impacts your blood sugars. And we'll talk about that in more detail later too. Medications can be used. Insulin has to be used for all type 1 diabetes patients, but with type 2, it can usually be managed through diet and exercise and stress management, through lifestyle. But it is a progressive disease, so oftentimes oral medications are needed. That's the first line of defense, and then later possibly insulin might be needed as well. So there are a lot of barriers that can come into play for disease management. There are a lot of factors that go into controlling blood glucose levels, and you'll see that throughout the rest of the presentation. And there's a huge learning curve that goes along with that. So, especially at the beginning, people can find it inconvenient or really hard to do. That's a huge barrier in the beginning. A low education level, insurance coverage, they might not cover the care that you need, the dietitian visits, or sometimes people might need an insulin pen to inject their insulin, and that their particular insurance might not cover that particular type. So insurance is a huge barrier. Social stigma, lack of understanding among employers and coworkers and friends and family. A lot of times people get into denial about it or just become depressed over it. I see that a lot with people who have type 1 diabetes, especially if they were diagnosed in their teenage years, and it's hard to really accept that. I mean, being a teenager is hard enough, so that's a really big deal there. And then physical limitations, just getting to all the doctor's visits and being able to take care of the things, going to pick up medicine, and that can be a big barrier. Time limitations, access to care. So there's a lot that goes into it. But it is so important to control diabetes and blood sugars because of these complications. This is actually, it seems like a long list, but it's a very short list of complications. It affects every part of the body. And you can see, the little picture there, you can barely read the words, but basically I put that picture up to show that it does impact everything. Everything from macrovascular, which is your heart, so heart attack, stroke, heart disease, to microvascular, everything with your kidneys, feet, eyes, dental problems, erectile dysfunction, Alzheimer's disease. All of this can be complications. All of these can be complications of diabetes. And it's really important to note that a lot of those can be completely prevented by just by good blood sugar control. And if not completely prevented, they can be pushed off much longer, so that they might happen a lot later in life instead of happening sooner. So managing the blood sugars is really key to preventing a lot of these. So just to go through a few of them. Eyes, you can see those pictures on the right side there. That's kind of what it looks like to have diabetic retinopathy. The blood sugars can actually do damage to the eye cells, and that's how that happens. So it's recommended that every 2 years to get an eye exam if you have diabetes. And then if there is any sense, if the doctor finds any retinopathy, then they recommend every 1 year after that. Feet are affected. The nerve endings in the feet can become, they don't work so well, so it can be numb or tingly in the feet, and which is numbness. And then if there are any cuts, ulcers, anything wrong with the skin on the feet, it's hard to feel that, right? Your feet are numb, you can't feel if you have something there. So then you wouldn't know to put a Band-Aid on it, or whatever you need to do to take care of that cut or sore. On top of that, to compound the problem, there's low blood flow to the feet. So now you're missing the external, what you could do to manage that cut. And also internally, there's not enough blood flowing to the cut to help heal it from the inside. So that's what leads to infections and amputations. And so screening for that is so, so important. If you have diabetes, it's very important to check your feet every single day. If you can't, pick up your foot and look, that's kind of hard to do for a lot of people. So you can have a loved one do it for you, or you can get a mirror and look at your feet that way. Just to make sure that everything's intact and that you don't have any cuts or sores there. Make sure you don't have any ingrown toenails. If you do, you want to care for those as you would any other cut. If they don't seem to be healing, then definitely go see your doctor. And of course, if they get worse, see your doctor. And then every year, a doctor should do a foot exam to see how your nerve endings are, to see how you can feel the bottom of your feet, and they'll check everything with your feet there too. So that is very important. Nobody wants an amputation. So kidneys are affected as well. High blood sugars make the kidneys work harder, so they're filtering more blood. Also, the high blood pressure that's associated with diabetes puts more pressure on the kidneys too. So the kidney cells get damaged, and what ends up is called Diabetic Nephropathy. That's kidney disease of diabetes, and that can lead to kidney failure, which then means that one would have to go on dialysis. Basically, you hook up to a machine, and that filters your blood out for you, which is what the job of the kidneys is. Since they can't do that, the machine's got to do it. And then, of course, a kidney transplant could be the outcome of that. Another pretty major complication of diabetes that can be prevented by blood sugar control. So screening for that is really important too, and that's annual every year. You should get to see if you should make sure that you don't have any excess proteins in your urine, and then also checking what's called the glomerular filtration rate, and that's basically shows how the kidneys are working. So diabetic patients are actually 2 to 4 times more likely to develop heart disease than those without diabetes. So there's some other risk factors there too that I've mentioned are associated with diabetes, like high blood pressure and obesity. So screening for that, blood pressure should be checked at every routine visit, which might be at least 4 visits a year. And a lipid profile or cholesterol, same thing, that should be checked every 1 to 2 years. The goals for heart health for people with diabetes are a little bit tighter, so your doctor might be more likely to put you on statins or any cholesterol medication sooner if you have diabetes than if you don't have diabetes. And that LDL cholesterol is the bad cholesterol. That number should be 70 or lower for people with diabetes. For people without diabetes, the goal is a little bit higher, it's 100 or lower. So just keep in mind that the limitations are a little bit more strict when it comes to diabetes for the heart health. So hypoglycemia is low blood sugar. So in addition to, by definition, diabetes is usually we think of the high blood sugars, but low blood sugar can be very dangerous too. That's anything below 70, and you can see all the pictures and words of the different signs of low blood sugar there. It's really important to act quickly if you notice that you're having a low blood sugar. A diabetic coma can lead to death, so it's you definitely don't want to pass out. And if you do, you want to make sure that there are people there that can help you. That's why I always say to wear an ID bracelet. They make really cute ones, or like a necklace, and they also have ID cards that you can put in your wallet, just to say that you have diabetes, so that if someone, an EMT or a stranger, or somebody comes upon you and you're passed out, they can come to your aid quicker. They kind of can assume what's going on with you. So treatment for a low blood sugar is the 15-15 rule. To keep it real simple. So if it's possible to check your blood sugar, then do that. Sometimes it's so low that you just want to act quickly and you don't have time for that, and that's okay. But if it's possible to check your blood sugar to see if it's low, then do that. And if it's below 70, then you want to consume 15 grams of carbohydrates, fast-acting carbohydrates. So that would be liquid, like juice or Coca-Cola, Sprite, something like that. But you just want to limit it to 15 grams because you don't want to overcorrect. That can lead you into this roller coaster of really high, then crash really low. So you do that 15 grams, and then you wait 15 minutes, and I know it can seem like an eternity, but you wait 15 minutes, and then you check your blood sugar again. And you repeat that if you need to until your blood sugar is at least 100. Once it's 100 or more, you're good to go. But you do want to have, pretty soon, within an hour or so, you want to have a balanced meal, and that can kind of straighten you out for the rest of the day, or the night, as it may be. So that's treatment for low blood sugar. But more important than treatment is, of course, prevention. We don't want to have to, run to get the sugars if you don't need to. So talking to your doctor about your medication dosage, especially if you've had, one or more low blood sugar episodes, you want to figure out what was the cause. Was it the medication? Was it something you did or didn't do? So you might want to adjust your diet for more balance, or if you are doing exercise, if you added a new physical activity, then making sure that you have more food on board. And then avoid alcohol. And I'm going to be realistic. I know that not everyone's going to completely abstain from alcohol all the time, although that would be the best thing to do. But if you do drink, and especially if you're on insulin and you drink, you are really at high risk for experiencing a low blood sugar. So drink in moderation, of course, and then never drink alone. Make sure you're with people who are aware of your condition and know what to do if you have a low blood sugar. And then always eat a balanced meal with protein, carbs, protein, healthy fat, with your beverage that you're going to have. So a lot of people say, oh, what if I just have a mixed drink like a rum and Coke? Will the Coke take care of it? No, not necessarily. So the alcohol itself can cause your blood sugar to drop, and if you're taking insulin as well, that can be really dangerous. So make sure that you have that balanced meal. And be proactive, not reactive. So always keep your eye on what's going on, and especially in the beginning of being diagnosed, tracking what you're eating, what you're doing for exercise, what you're taking for your medications, and what your blood sugars are throughout the day can really help you tune into how your body is going to react to everything in your life. Hyperglycemia is high blood sugar. Some examples of the signs and symptoms are right there. So you always, again, you want to be checking your blood sugar on a regular basis. And if you do notice that your blood sugar has been high for 3 days, so that could be much higher than usual, or if it's like 250 or above for 3 days in a row, call your doctor. You want to make sure that you know what's going on. And as I mentioned before, diabetes is progressive, so it is on its own going to change, and it'll make it worse over time. And so it's not the type of disease where you can just take one pill or do one exact same thing for the whole rest of your life and be fine with that. It's ever changing and in flux. So it might just be that you need to go on more medication or something else is going on. But reasons that you might have a high blood sugar could be, if you ate too much or skipped your normal exercise or missed your medication or something like that. So how to manage diabetes from day to day, where you don't experience that super high or super low blood sugar. There are really 4 kind of pillars of areas where you can focus. So one is balancing your intake, not skipping meals, balancing your carbs throughout the day, from day to day. The next one is exercising regularly. So check your blood glucose, and we'll talk about that, before and possibly after your exercise to see how it impacts your blood sugars. Managing stress, and then taking your medications and checking your blood sugar levels are all how you can keep your blood sugars from going too high or too low on a regular basis. So first, balanced meals. So that's a picture of a perfectly balanced meal. Now, not every meal is going to have that much food. Not every meal is going to look like that. It might be a burrito, and you can still balance a burrito, I promise. So, but you basically, what you want is to have half of your plate filled with non-starchy vegetables. So that's pictured there as a salad, but it can be cooked vegetables. It can be like a little stir fry of bell peppers and onions and zucchini, squash, broccoli. There are more non-starchy vegetables than there are starchy vegetables. So that's the good news. Those have a lot of fiber and they don't have a whole lot of carbs. So you like to have a lot of those. So you've got half your plate filled with the non-starchy vegetables, and then a quarter of your plate filled with grains or starchy vegetables. So, if we do the burrito analogy, that would be like your tortilla, right? And then if you wanted to have rice in your burrito too, well, you better check your tortilla to make sure it doesn't have too many carbs. You can have rice in there as well, and that would also be part of that starch grain area. And then the other quarter would be proteins. That's, chicken, fish, beef, but also, cheese can count as a protein, and I've got a list coming up in a slide or two as well. On the side there, they have pictured a small serving of fruit and then a little cup of milk. You don't always have to have milk with your meal. I actually usually recommend to not drink your carbs, but if you really love milk, then to limiting it to a cup or 8 ounces in a day is a good thing to do. And so that would be 3 servings of carbs there: the milk, the fruit, and the little crackers. And that's on average. Most people could do well with 2 to 3 servings of carbs per meal, but everyone is different. So if you have diabetes and you're curious what your meal plan should be, I highly recommend that you visit a dietitian. So we have some fantastic outpatient dietitians at Barton, and I just saw someone here who used to work at Harrah's. I used to be the dietitian at Harrah's, and they have a dietitian there for all the Harrah's and Harvey's employees. So you have lots of options, and I actually live on the North Shore, and if you live on the North Shore and you want something out there, you can come see me. So, but it's really important to get a personalized plan so that you can know, how frequently it's going to work best for you to eat, how many carbs per meal, and how to respond to that, along with your medication and everything too. So carbohydrates are the foods that increase blood sugar. It's really important to eat those. A lot of people, when they get diagnosed with diabetes, think that they should just cut out all carbs. That's not correct. So you need to have some carbohydrates, but they should be the right ones and not too much or too many of them. And just keep in mind that liquid carbohydrates will increase your blood sugar much higher and much faster than the food carbohydrates. So the example, would be an apple versus apple juice. The apple juice is going to increase your blood sugar much quicker than the whole apple will. If you're getting a lot more fiber with that, there's more to it than just the sugars. So I usually recommend to try not to drink any carbohydrates. That's if you can avoid drinking your sugars, then that would be a really great thing, and then you get a lot more food. I always think that's even more fun. So to keep in mind that fats will slow down how quickly the blood sugar rises. So if you can incorporate a healthy fat with your carbs, and I have some examples coming up, that would be a really good thing to do. That keeps everything kind of even keel. Proteins also provide important nutrients, and they help with keeping you full for longer. They help with muscle development. Muscles use sugars, so the more muscles that you have, the more you can help control your blood sugars with that too. And so unless you're fixing a low blood sugar, you always want to include protein or healthy fat whenever you eat carbohydrates. So here's our food list that I keep referring to. On the left we have carbohydrates, and oftentimes as a dietitian I'll hear people say, oh, I have diabetes, I'm now cutting out all my carbohydrates. And I start questioning further, and really they're just referring to that bottom bullet point, the desserts, the sweets, the candy, and that's great. That would be great to eliminate them if it's possible. They're okay to have every once in a while though, but look at all the other healthy carbs that are available there too. And I should say legumes, beans, those also have protein as well, but they're mostly carbs. So I kind of put them in the carbohydrates group. They're kind of a combo food. But you have the starchy vegetables, potatoes, corn, and peas are the most commonly eaten ones of those. And then grains, I usually recommend the whole grain version of whatever grain you're going to have. So the basic example would be brown rice instead of white rice. Those are going to provide more protein and more fiber, which helps control blood sugars too. And then the proteins and healthy fats are to the right. And I mentioned the seafood, poultry, meat, but also nuts and seeds, any butters from those or oils from those. Eggs, Greek yogurt I put in the proteins group because it has a lot more protein than does regular yogurt. And cheese. Avocado is a fantastic healthy fat to have. It also has lots of fiber, a whole lot of fiber. You just want to be careful if you're watching your weight as well. If you're trying to lose weight, you just want to make sure that you don't go overboard with the avocados because they can add a lot of calories. So I usually recommend, limiting it to like half an avocado a day maximum. So moving on to exercise. Exercise, like I said before, is really crucial to controlling blood sugars for type 2 diabetes. And then for type 1 diabetes, we'll talk about what it's important to think about when you're adding exercise or when you're doing exercise. But this is just what happens in your body when you exercise. So your muscles, they need sugar to do the work that they're going to do. So when you're being physically active, your muscles are requesting sugar out of your blood. And I always like to say they kind of reach out and grab those sugars from your blood and bring them into the muscle cells. I mean, it's kind of what happens, because when you do even as little as like a 10-minute walk, if you were to test your blood sugar before and after, you would notice that your blood sugar would go down a little bit. So that's kind of how it all works. Now that is especially for type 2 diabetes. That's if you have insulin in your body and it's working properly and everything, then that will help lower your blood sugar. If you do a really intense exercise, and especially, if you do a really super intense exercise, like running a marathon or like lifting, bodybuilding type of lifting weights, then that might cause your blood sugar to go up because it creates a stress response in your body. So just keep that in mind. But when we're talking about just regular, walking, kind of light jogging, light exercise, this can be one of the most important things that can help control blood sugar, especially for type 2 diabetes. So exercise is just so important. So with type 2 diabetes, I recommend picking something that you want to try, something that you think you can stick to, something that you will look forward to. So if you like to be with groups of people, then do something for exercise that's with a group. If you like to be alone, try something that's where you're alone. If you like to be outside or inside, whatever it is, do something that you'll really look forward to. Start small and build from there. Test your blood sugar before you exercise and after. That's number one, to show you, to prove to you that it will help lower your blood sugar. Number two is to help you become aware of how much it will lower your blood sugar so that you don't end up in that low blood sugar zone. And number three, if it's 100 or lower before you start your exercise, I recommend that you eat a carbohydrate snack before you go into that exercise so that you don't get that low. So it's okay to exercise in short segments a few times in the day. So 3 bouts of 10-minute exercise, you'll get the same benefit as 1 bout of 30-minute exercise. That, I think, helps a lot of people become, it can be really overwhelming to think, I do 30 minutes today. But if you can do a 10-minute walk before you go to work, 10-minute walk on your break, and 10 minutes at home, then you've done your 30 minutes, and you don't have to take a whole big chunk out of your day to do that. Do something outside of your normal routine. So if you are really active for your job, let's say if you're like a busser at a restaurant, you bus tables, you're running around all the time, that's great. That's helping control your blood sugars. But if they're still higher than you want them to be, or if they're a little out of control, then I recommend adding something on top of that in order to take better control. And it doesn't have to be in a gym. I mentioned that before. There's a lot that you can do. So with type 1 diabetes, exercise is really important, as it is for all humans, for just general health and well-being. And then there are a couple of different rules, and even for type 2, people with type 2 diabetes who rely on insulin as well. So you've got to really learn your body's response to exercise and to your exercise that you do. I mentioned there could be different responses depending on how intense the exercise is. But also, different people's blood sugar might drop to a different degree depending on, even if they do, 2 different people do the same exercise. So again, test your blood sugar before you exercise. If it's under 100, then go ahead and eat a carb snack before you start. Now for people who are insulin dependent, this part's really important. If your blood sugar is high, like at least 250, before you start your exercise, then stop and test your ketones. And if you have type 1 diabetes, or if you are insulin dependent, then hopefully you know what that means. But it's basically, there's little test strips that you can get from your doctor. And if you are on insulin and you don't know what I'm talking about, please go talk to your doctor about getting these test strips so that you can test. So test your ketone, check your urine to see if there are ketones present. If they are, then don't exercise. That's really important. There's something called Diabetic Ketoacidosis, and it's when your blood sugar gets so high that your body creates all these ketones, and there's so many that can poison your body. And we see people in the hospital with that all the time. So, so really important. So if you have ketones present, don't exercise. Check, did you take your insulin on time? Whatever you need to, remember to. Whatever you need to remember. If you notice your blood sugar continues to climb after that, then I'd recommend calling your doctor as well. But if there aren't ketones present, then you can still exercise, but just do so with caution. Maybe you injected your insulin half an hour ago, and it's going to peak, pretty soon, and you're okay with that. So just watch out. You can still exercise, but just maybe not to the intensity that you would have before. And you need to make sure that you have insulin on board and with you if you're going to go exercise. So lots of options. You can do anything. Don't let diabetes stop you. There's no reason why you can't do whatever you want to do. There's a fantastic, it used to be called a support group, and now it's called a success group in town with some athletes in there. I mean, people that have done mountain biking tours, and you hear people running marathons. You can do it. Even if you're on insulin, even if you have type 1 diabetes. So don't let anything stop you. If you do want to meet some of those people, wonderful people that are in the type 1 or insulin-dependent diabetes success group, that happens at Barton in the boardroom the first Tuesday of every month at 5:30. Yeah, so they're a great group, and you can see all the things that you can do with having diabetes. If you've never exercised before, or if you have type 2 diabetes and you're really ready to step it up and you aren't familiar with exercise, then I have a list right there of some ideas, inside, outside, with groups, alone. Playing with your kids, you can make it enjoyable, make it fun, but schedule it on your calendar. If you're going to start something new, write it down and decide to do it and do it. So, stress. Now, stress impacts your blood sugars and your entire health of your body in a lot of different ways. So I know there are lots of arrows and lines there, but really the whole idea is to just show you how impactful stress can be on your body. So mental stress, that's our everyday stress that we experience at work, family, finances, whatever it might be. Mental stress can increase your blood sugar significantly and very rapidly. So if something, maybe you just got fired or something, your blood sugars are going to go through the roof pretty immediately, okay? But also mental stress, even chronic mental stress, can cause for poor eating, poor behavior choices, which can lead to poor eating, and then also increasing your blood pressure, which we've learned has negative impacts for your body. Physical stress, mostly referring to there as illness. Usually you'll see your blood sugar will go up while you're sick. So, and that increases your blood sugar and your blood pressure as well. So all of these things are interrelated. The bottom line is to control your stress, manage your stress the best you can. I know, you can't really help getting sick, but if you feel like you're stressed out on a regular basis, these are just some ideas of ways to manage your stress. Breathing and meditation, exercising, again, isn't exercising just the star of the show? It really can help with everything. So it helps manage your blood sugars on an immediate, direct level, but it also helps manage your stress, which can then help everything too. Listening to music, making sure that you're getting enough sleep, very important. Journaling can help, or talking to a counselor. I know a lot of employers have what they call an EAP program, an employee assistance program, and that's a really great thing. If you aren't sure if your employer has that, then ask the HR or ask whoever's in charge. That's usually like a free program where you can get a counselor and talk out your issues there. Creating a support system of family, friends, maybe somebody that you can call when you're feeling stressed out. Setting realistic goals, so not setting goals that are beyond your reach. That can be stressful. Constantly feel like you're failing if you're setting non-realistic goals. So making sure that you're being realistic there. And then boundaries. That's a huge one that I think a lot of people, we all have problems with. But knowing when to say no, and not letting other people become, asking you to do things to the point where it's stressing you out, and that's going to cause you health problems, right? When you think back to all those complications of out-of-control blood sugars, that is, stress is a huge part of that. And so when you think of whether you want to help someone out or go out of your way or do this extra thing after work, really think of, is this something that's going to stress me out to the point where it's going to cause an issue with my blood sugars, and know when to say no. It's okay to say no. It's your health, and if you don't have your health, then you can't take care of everyone else anymore. So I always like to harp on that one because it's a big one, and we all have issues with that too. So finally, medications. These are some medications so there are lots of different diabetes medications basically, and they all have different functions. These are just some of the names of some of them, but some of them can make your pancreas release more insulin. Now these are oral medications, and these are only work for type 2 diabetes. So if your pancreas is still working and there's still insulin to be made, then some of those medications will work that way. The first oral medications, usually the first line of defense, is Metformin, and that one actually helps decrease the production of blood sugar in your body. So all the while you're trying to control your blood sugars, your liver can be producing blood sugars as well. So that one helps in the background there. And then some of them increase insulin sensitivity. Some of them slow absorption of carbohydrates after meals. That's somewhat newer. The Precos or acarbose, kind of a newer drug. And then some cause insulin release and slow down glucose release from the liver. So in addition to these, there are lots of combination drugs that will combine a couple of these. So they can work in one way or multiple ways. Then there are injectable medications, and there are actually injectable medications that aren't insulin. So those can be used for type 2 diabetes. Those are the first few, Diabetic Ketoacidosis, and Stigma that are listed up there. And then external sources of insulin, those have to be used for type 1, for people with type 1 diabetes. It's the first thing that happens when you first get diagnosed. They're giving you insulin in the hospital, and you're going to walk out and you're going to go home with some insulin to take with you. So that's a must for type 1 diabetes. For type 2 diabetes, you might be able to manage your blood sugars without ever getting to that point, and maybe not. And a lot of times I hear people say that their doctor kind of uses it as a threat. Like, oh, if you don't do this, you're going to have to go on insulin. And I don't like hearing that, because it's not, like I said before, it's a progressive disease. Sometimes you do everything you can do in your power, and you still might have to go on insulin, and that's okay. And as Lynn always said, thank goodness that it's there so that you can help your body manage those blood sugars, right? So you can be happy that there is insulin that you can inject when the time comes. But it's important to manage everything the best way you can, maybe to try to prevent that if you do have type 2 diabetes. So Lantus is the long-acting, and that one doesn't really have a peak. It just lasts for 24 hours. And it really is supposed to work on the sugars that your liver is making. So it has nothing to do with managing mealtime blood sugars. And then you have your intermediate acting, your short acting, and your rapid acting. And those can be adjusted, and some of the times they're combined. And so the doctors can put you on a nice plan that works for you. And I did forget to say this when I was talking about especially the oral medications, but even the insulin. If something isn't working, tell your doctor. So call your doctor right away. I mean, if you're noticing you're having a couple of low blood sugars, or maybe your blood sugars haven't been under the control that you'd like to see, call your doctor, because as you can see, I'll go back to the last slide, look at all the medications that are there. I mean, if you're having a bad side effect from something, then there are other options, and just know that. So your doctor, A, needs to know if you've stopped taking your medication, and B, might be able to help you out with something that would work a little bit better. The other thing too, especially if you're on insulin, is to keep a diary of what you're eating, what you're doing throughout the day, what times what times your meals and snacks are, what time you're taking your insulin. And that's really important, especially in the beginning stages of going on insulin, so that you can get to know, again, how your body is reacting to everything and the response for that. So that concludes the presentation part. So are there any questions?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to just say that I've been diabetic for 5 years. So my first year I was type 2, and then I went to type 1. And even when you do all of that, your numbers can still be crazy, you know, so just to give yourself a break, you know, and that's,
Yeah, exactly.
that's the main thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's exactly right. And that's why, you know, giving yourself a break and learning from what's going on, and it takes a while. I mean, it's a really steep learning curve. And even, you know, having it for 5 years, you're still learning. I mean, I know people that have had it for 20, 30 years and still learn all the time. And things are constantly changing in your body. So yeah, that's a great point and a good thing to share with everyone. So always to be forgiving.
So I did any research on the, for gestational diabetes because I know you had mentioned like you always, you know, tell mom to continue their healthy lifestyle even after pregnancy, but what about for the babies? Has there been any research that they develop for diabetes later in life?
Maybe. So if the baby is over 9 pounds, then that's a risk factor for developing gestational diabetes later. So, and that's a result of, you know, if the mom's blood sugars weren't controlled during the pregnancy. So, yeah, definitely. Well, thank you all so much for being here. And we do have some pamphlets on the table back there for the Barton Outpatient Nutrition Services. So if you do feel like you want to see a dietitian to get a personalized plan for your own, you know, meal planning or just lifestyle changes in general, that's a great resource that our community has. And you can take a pamphlet, it's that green stand-up pamphlet on the table. And Lynn is here too. She's one of the outpatient dietitians, so if you wanted to chat with her and see what it's all about, I'm sure she doesn't mind chatting with you after.